Today we're talking about how to sound more assertive, that feeling of being honest and direct, but at the same time, respecting the other person. What does it sound like, and how can you do it right away? Welcome to the Jefferson Fisher podcast, where I'm on a mission to make your next conversation the one that changes everything. If you enjoy learning tools to improve your communication, I'm going to ask you to subscribe to this channel, and please leave a review. If you have any topic suggestions, just throw them in the comments. When you need to sound more assertive, here's what I want you to do. Number one, stop over apologizing. This is where you say, I'm sorry, so sorry, in every single sentence. I know it's a tic. I know it's a habit, but you got to stop, and I'm going to explain why. Number two, stop undervaluing what you have to say. That's when you downgrade your comment before you even get it out. Again, this is hurting your confidence, and we're going to dive into it. And number three, get comfortable with the word no. Get comfortable disappointing people. No is a complete sentence. I want you to think back to a conversation where you wish you would have sounded a little bit more assertive. Maybe it was at home with a partner or a spouse. Maybe it was at work with a coworker or a boss. A time where you wanted to be honest, you wanted to be direct, but you just couldn't find the words. Think back to that conversation in your mind and wonder, what could I have said differently? And here's what I need to tell you right out of the gate. If you don't find your assertive voice, you will be walked over. It will affect your confidence, and it will affect the trajectory of your life. It sounds harsh, but it's very true. Now, in my life, where I found that I struggled with assertiveness the most was anytime I was new somewhere. Maybe it was a new school or a new law firm, and I felt like I was crawling into it. I found myself being deferential to anybody and everything, even at the sake of my own well-being and my own boundaries. But what do? You're new. You feel like you have to do it. Well, that's not exactly true. When you find that assertive voice and you're able to say what you want to say and do it respectfully, it will change your life, and I mean for the better, because people will take notice. Your reputation will change, your credibility will change, and man, that's the good stuff. So I'm going to throw out some scenarios to you, and you let me know if any of them ring a bell. You walk in 1 minute late to a meeting, and the first thing out of your mouth is, hey, so sorry I'm late, when you throw all of your stuff down. Or it took you 2 days to respond to somebody's email, and the first word in your response back is, so sorry. So sorry, I just saw this. Sorry, I am just now getting back to you. Or you're trying to get somebody's attention, and the first thing out of your mouth is, so sorry. Hey, so sorry, 2 seconds. Hey, so sorry, I just need to talk to you for a second. You got to stop. Listen to me. You have to stop. Those aren't apologies. And if they are, well, then you're just apologizing for all the wrong things. You're apologizing for your existence. You're apologizing for your time. And you're apologizing for your priorities. These aren't real apologies. All right? You're finding ways to feel like you're an inconvenience to someone. But let me tell you, your worth is far more than just trying to feel that you're not an inconvenience to someone, that you always have to prove that you're not an inconvenience. So we're going to fix that. And the way to do it is instead of saying, I'm sorry, you're going to say, thank you. All right? It's as simple as that. Instead of saying, I'm sorry, we're going to use words of gratitude, like I appreciate or thank you. So if you come in walking into that meeting and you're 30 seconds late, you're 1 minute late, nobody is expecting an apology for that. Now, if you're 5 minutes late, I think it's absolutely the right thing to apologize, because at that point you're wasting their time. But if you're just a few minutes late, if you're barely over the line, it's okay to say, thank you for your patience. Thanks for waiting on me. I appreciate your time. That is assertive. Or if it's in the context of you sending an email to somebody, instead of feeling like you need to say, hey, so sorry, I'm just getting back to this, just respond, I appreciate your time. Thanks for your understanding. Thank you for your patience. These are all things that they're going to say, oh yeah, well, you're welcome. I do have patience. I do have understanding. Instead of you going, hey, so sorry, this less, making you feel less in that way. Instead, you're being assertive with it. You're standing in your presence and saying, yeah, I had other things to do. I appreciate your patience, though. In the context of the conversation of telling someone, hey, so sorry, can I have 5 seconds? You just erase it. Or you say, hey, when you get a moment, I'd appreciate some of your time. Or I'd appreciate some of your time when you get a moment. When you use words of gratitude, it is a cycle of saying, I am showing gratitude for your time. At the same time, they are appreciating your presence in the conversation, rather than you always apologizing for it. Now, a separate but related topic to over-apologizing is number 2, downplaying your words. Here you are cutting down what you have to say before you even get it out, and you know what these sound like. For example, I hate to bother you, but, this might be a dumb question, but you know probably better than me, but these are all ways of chopping down what you have to say before you get it out. And what's worse is it makes it look like you have an insecurity when there may not be one. For example, when you say something like, well, I hate to bother you, but I have this question on X, Y, and Z. Well, before they actually answer the question, you have to have this mini conversation about whether or not what you have to say does or does not bother them. And 9 times out of 10, 99% of the time, they're going to say, oh, that you're not bothering me, you're fine. And you go, oh, you're not, oh, okay, great. You're inserting something that's totally needless into the conversation. And I know why you're using these phrases, all right? I know why you're using them, because you want to sound deferential. You want to sound like you're coming in from a low angle, a low perspective rather than a high angle, as if you already know everything. You expect them to want to talk to you. So when you say, I'm sorry to bother you, you're trying to sound less harsh in the conversation, but you don't sound that way. It makes you sound like you don't believe in what you're saying. So the key to getting rid of downplaying your words is just not to do it. You erase these phrases from your conversation. Or what I like to do, and I recommend, is that you add on to it. So for example, in the scenarios where you say, hey, this might be a dumb question, or this might be a stupid question, instead say, hey, can I build onto that? Or, hey, can I take that further? Or, hey, there's something I'd like to add to that. When you add to conversations, rather than shying away and taking away from them, it makes you sound far more assertive. And there's something else I want you to understand about no. Number 3 is no is a complete sentence. And here's what I mean by that. Stop feeling like you have to over-explain or justify every action or inaction that you take. When you say no, period, and leave it at that. Somebody asks you a question and you say, no. Instead of over-explaining and saying, well, no, because, well, I had that thing, and yeah, I got the dog, and we got this, and we got that. All of a sudden, you sound less assertive, and you water it down. No is all you have to say. So the key here is to stop adding because to the end of no, because it'll add more words to it. And the more words you add, the more it sounds like you're needing to explain and to justify, when often the only word that you need to sound assertive is no. Now we're at the part where I am going to read an email from a follower. If you are not part of my newsletter, I send out 1 email per week. It's a communication tip right to your inbox, totally for free. And for those who respond and have questions about things, I'm able to answer them. And it's all a lot of fun. This one comes from Daniel over in Canada. Daniel says, hey, Jefferson, I love your comments, your content. Thanks, Daniel. I find myself over-apologizing constantly in my communication. I know I'm not supposed to do that, but what are some practical ways I can help remind myself in the moment? I got it, Daniel. Well, it's a little hard because it's my understanding, I've never been there, but people apologize a lot in Canada. Sorry. And I might be wrong, but I think it's a cultural thing too. So it's not all your fault. But if you want a very practical way to stop apologizing when you don't need to, I have a little tip you can use. Now, this might be a dad joke thing. I fully admit that now that I'm about to say it, but it works. Every time you're about to say, hey, so sorry, or I'm sorry, when you don't need it, tell yourself in your head and catch yourself. I'm not sorry, I'm Daniel. I'm not sorry, I'm Daniel. It's a reminder of who you are in that conversation. You're not who your apology is. You are who your existence is. You lean into that. So I am not here to talk about my apologies. I'm here to talk about who I am and what I need and how I need to assert my needs into this conversation. And it's a very quick way that you can do that, and I hope it helps. All right, I got another one. This one is from Ashley up in Maine. I've never been to Maine either. I guess I just need to travel more. Ashley says, "Hey Jefferson, I love your short practical videos." Thanks, Ashley. "I find myself always cutting down my words. My habit is to say, I could be wrong, but. So I get that. The I could be wrong, but it's a very easy phrase to slide in. The reason you're wanting to say that is because you don't want to sound like you're know-it-all. Yeah? You're not wanting to sound like you're always right, like you always know the answer. So it's a little easier for you to hedge and say, hey, I could be wrong, but it doesn't make you sound like that, right? Just like we talked about, it makes you sound like you don't believe in what you're going to say. And I have a trick that I use with my own clients that I know is going to help you. I want you to imagine, Ashley, all right, that you are an attorney. You have a suit on, we're in a courtroom, and it's full, and you need to speak on behalf of your client. And your client is you. It's a duplicate of you. It looks just like you, sounds just like you, wears exactly what you're wearing right now, and your client's sitting down in a chair. And you're the attorney, you're in a full suit, and you're standing up in front of everyone, and you have to speak on behalf of your client. And what are you going to say? You're going to say, my client needs to feel understood. My client isn't going to accept that. You're going to feel much more justified, assertive. You have to stand in that place of what your client needs and wants because you understand them. Well, instead of saying my client, Ashley, I want you to tweak it and just say I. Instead of saying I could be wrong, but say, I need to know what's going on in this conversation. I need to feel understood. I need X, Y, and Z. To say, I need, instead of my client needs. It's going to make you feel like you have a brand new personality. And now you can see where you always say, I could be wrong, but instead of just getting rid of that and saying, I need to make sure that I feel understood before we end this conversation. You see how more assertive that makes you sound? If you can do that, it's going to help your mindset the next time you find yourself in that situation. If you want to sound more confident, do this. Number one, eliminate the fluff. Eliminate the fluff. You know what I'm talking about. Fluff is that kind of, well, I mean, you know, it's just this, fluff. Fluff that absolutely kills the confidence in your responses. Number two, we're going to work on uptalk. That is where you begin to increase in the tone of your voice, almost like you're asking a question. Instead of saying something like this, it sounds kind of like this. At the end of your sentences, they uptalk, and that's not good because it makes it sound like everything you're saying is a question, like you're uncertain about it. And number three, we're going to work on word choice. That means we're going to eliminate ending your sentences with, you know what I mean? We're going to eliminate using the word just all the time, and we're going to minimize your reliance on adverbs. Those are words that end in ly, literally. Now, I want to be clear. There is a difference between talking to friends and talking in a professional setting, period. When you're talking to people that are close to you, who cares about fluff words? If you are fumbling over your words and you're saying, and you know, and well, maybe, you know, anytime you're saying that to a friend, no problem. It's casual, it's comfortable, it's part of the conversation. But if you're talking in a professional setting, maybe at work, maybe in front of an important group, do you hear I just said it? In an important group, then it's not great for you because it makes it sound as if you are uncertain, like you're hesitant, like you're not sure what you're wanting to say. But in regular conversation, it's part of the game. Now, about fluff. Fluff comes in all shapes and sizes, and I want you to think about it as if it is static. It's a filler. They call them filler words. I like to say fluff. They also are ways of thinking about it of too much ice in your drink because they dilute your message. If you want to sound confident, you got to serve your words straight. So when you begin a sentence in front of a group, they ask you a question, and you're on the spot to respond. And the first thing out of your mouth is, that's very common. They ask you a question, and the first thing you want to say is, automatically that confidence and how you sound just tanks because you're not communicating. You're just wanting to make sound out. That's really what it is. We feel comfortable when we have this constant sound wave. Whenever there's the constant just noise, whether it's actual words being articulated or not, we just like hearing that sound. So that's why it comes out that way. If somebody asks me a question and I go, it depends. You see how vague that is versus you ask me a question and the first thing that I say is, I haven't run across that before. I think it depends on a number of factors. And I begin to speak. Very different. Same goal. I'm telling them I've never run across that before. Very different sound. So you want to find ways to eliminate that fluff. And how you do it is very simple. It's very simple, okay? It's so simple you're going to be like, Jefferson, I knew this. But are you doing it? The question here is, do you know how to eliminate that fluff? And you do it by saying nothing. Wherever the fluff would be, just get used to silence. It's that easy. Get comfortable with silence. That's it. You just get comfortable with silence. So wherever that filler word would be, say nothing. The way I teach, and I know I've said this on my podcast before, let your breath be the first word that you say. So when somebody asks you a question that you don't know, the worst thing you can do is go, and look up as if you're searching for the words. Instead, take a breath, let that silence be there, and then you get to respond. You don't have to have just noise for the sake of noise. Give it a pause and fill that space with absolute nothing. Allow your breath to catch the attention, for them to hang on to your next words, for you to say, I haven't run across that before. But what I am confident about is we can look at X, Y, and Z. That's how you handle fluff. Now, uptalk is a little bit different, and I find that it is very dependent on gender most of the time. For men don't really have this issue, but women do. It's an uptalk just because of the way you can tweak the end and sound of your voice, but it certainly happens to the guys too. I don't want to say it's just a female thing or a male thing at all. It's not. But it sounds like this. When you have that people who are in the office and they're talking to you and they go, yeah, I think I can do that. I mean, yeah, we can probably get it to you by Friday. Like as if you're hanging on to it, as if they're asking for permission in some way. When you say that and you sound like that, it cuts down on your confidence because it sounds like you're not sure. It sounds like you're unclear and you're asking for permission in some way. Think of it this way. This is how I want you to say your words. Ask as if you're asking someone to pass the salt. All right, here over in America, in Texas, if I'm going to ask somebody to pass the salt, I'm going to say, hey, so-and-so, can you pass the salt? Period. You see how my volume, my tone there at the end went down? Can you pass the salt? So when you end on a lower note, it sounds more serious. You see that? And instead of saying it sounds more serious, it sounds more serious. When you uptalk, it sounds like you're asking a question. When you go down, it sounds like you're making a firm statement. So I wouldn't say, hey, can you pass the salt? As if I don't know what salt is or you don't know what salt is. Instead, I say, can you pass the salt? As if I'm assuming, yes, everybody knows what it is. I'm going to keep that cadence flat. And if I can, drop the tone just a little bit at the bottom to make it sound a lot more firm and a lot more confident. All right, this one's going to step on some toes a little bit. This is word choice. Word choice. What are the words that you're saying to sound confident at any given time? One of the biggest culprits, in my view, is ending your sentence with something that doesn't feel firm. Does that make sense? There it is, right there. This element of, does that make sense? Every time you ask that question, you're doing something that is double-sided. Let me explain. If I'm going to tell you something and I make a statement, I say, does that make sense? I'm doing two things. The reason I'm saying that, the reason you may be saying that, is because it's this internal fear or insecurity of maybe the words that I'm saying aren't actually making sense to someone. They're not clear. I'm not communicating well. On the other side, I'm assuming that what I am saying may or may not be making sense to them. So the other person, it could also be offensive in some way to them, especially if you make it after a statement that is very common. Like, the sky's blue today. Does that make sense? The other person's like, oh, yeah, of course it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. It was a plain sentence. There's nothing complicated about that. So in some ways you may be insulting their intelligence by saying, does that make sense? You poor, pitiful mind, do I need to go a little bit slower for you? So I'm not saying it's all the time, but it definitely runs that risk. I've certainly had it where somebody asks, does that make sense? After a statement where I only say, yes, that makes sense. How else could I have taken that sentence? But I know where it's coming from is this insecurity feeling of, am I saying it right? Am I doing okay? It's best that you eliminate that. All right. Instead of saying, does that make sense? You can replace that with, what are your thoughts? That's it. What are your thoughts? Do you have any questions? Do you have any feedback? My favorite is, what are your thoughts? Instead of, does that make sense? I'm saying, what are your thoughts? I'm inviting communication. I'm inviting continuing the conversation instead of, do we need to stop and set a new paragraph for you to feel comfortable with this? I'm inviting them. What are your thoughts? What do you think? That's it. They might say, I'm good. I don't have any thoughts. That sounds great. Awesome. But at least I'm not assuming that they didn't understand what I said. If I said, does that make sense? So I would get rid of that. Just replace it with, what are your thoughts? Another way to tweak some of your communication to sound more confident is eliminate the word just. I love the word just in my regular day conversation. It's very common. But if I'm going to communicate in front of a group, try to eliminate it. Or if you're going to email somebody, try to eliminate it. Hear the difference. If I text you or email, or I say to you, hey, I just wanted to check in. I just want to touch base. That sounds almost hesitant, doesn't it? Hey, just want to check in. That sounds almost hesitant. Versus, hey, I wanted to check in on you. I wanted to touch base. That sounds like I'm leaning into it. I'm not shying away. I'm stepping into it. I wanted to do this. Versus, hey, I just wanted to. As if I'm just a little bit, I'm not trying to get in your space. Very different. Eliminate that word just because it makes you sound more hesitant in your communication. And that's not the way you want to sound. Another is the way you use adverbs. I'm going to step on a little bit of toes here with this. And that is, often when you overuse adverbs, it makes it more fluffy. Where you're really not saying anything. We all have these little tics that we like to say. Maybe we got them from family. Maybe we got them from friends or wherever you're working. But they cut down on the confidence and the assertiveness of your sentences. So here's some words like that. Essentially, big culprit. Literally, those two alone. Basically, anything that ends with ly. Here is a very common response when somebody is responding to something or answering a question that you're asking. They're going to say, so essentially, what we have is, that means nothing. That means nothing. It's just fluff. Those are comfort words. Those are security blankets that you like to have. It's going to be best if you eliminate those. There's not some kind of cure. You just need to find ways to get rid of them. If you ever see an email that says essentially or basically or literally or any other type of words, understand you can just eliminate them and they're going to be a whole lot better. Remember, if you want to have strong sentences, you need to just serve your words straight every time. The first thing to know about standing up for yourself is knowing when to do it. Because number one, not everybody's worth getting out of your chair for. It is a know your worth mentality. And we're going to talk exactly where you need to go in your mind leading up to these conversations. Number two, get rid of the verbal disclaimers. These are little statements you say before you say what you need to say. Like, hey, I'm sorry, but I just feel like maybe. We're going to talk about getting rid of those and how to do it. Number three, stop justifying the no's. Stop having to feel like you need to explain yourself on and on just because you turn somebody down. When you do that, it takes away slowly from your self-confidence, and I don't want to see that. Now, maybe nobody's told you this, but just because somebody has said something does not mean that it requires a response from you. Just because they throw a pitch doesn't mean you have to swing. You just let it go by. There's this idea in our head that because somebody gave us an opinion, we have to give an opinion back. That's just not true. When it comes to standing up for yourself, it is often the person that is not worth your time that you don't need to give attention to. And often that's the exact opposite of what we do. We find ourselves trying to justify and explain to people that do not matter in our life, the people that rank low in our priority list, but yet we feel like we have to prove something to them every single time that we talk. Eliminate that concern. When people play chess, it's expected that you're going to take a pawn. Nobody freaks out about it. Nobody loses their mind when somebody takes a pawn because they know the value is not the pawn. They can take a rook. Okay. They want to take a queen. That's different. Understand that there's going to be lots of different conflicts in your life, lots of different conversations. They are not all the same. The feeling you get by talking with certain people, those friendships, where they rank in relationship to you, they're not all the same. So what I want you to understand is stop attending every argument that you're invited to. Just because somebody gave an opinion and said something to you, you have the choice of just letting it go. Saying that does not require any response from me. That is not worth my time. That's why I say it's a know your worth mentality. Before you stand up for yourself and feel like you have to say something, ask the question, is this person worth getting out of my chair for? Is this somebody that actually needs part of my energy? Because there is a strength and a wisdom in conserving your energy and protecting your peace. So the next time that happens, I want you to go through that filter and ask yourself, is this person worth getting out of my chair for? Because I know my worth. And please understand that goes for anything that they say. Just because they spew out garbage does not mean we're in the business of picking up trash. Let me say that again. Just because they spew out garbage does not mean that you're in the business of picking up trash. You can politely tell them where it should go, and it's not going to be on you. So understand that part of protecting your peace is understanding, I know what they're saying is not worth my time. I'm going to take it and set it aside. Personally, what I do in my own life is I have a waste basket. All right, I have a trash bag right next to me in my mind. And if somebody says something I don't like, rather than me feeling like I have to throw it back to them, and I have to pick up that trash, that gross, nasty thing that they said and give it right back to them, I just take it and I move it over and put it in the trash. You can say like at a computer or a laptop, you just get it, you drag it over, and you put it in the recycling bin, and then you delete it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to carry it. So understand, just because they throw out garbage at you does not mean that you're in the business of picking up trash. When you have to advocate for yourself, part of that mindset is knowing how to go into it. Too often, there is the hesitancy to say what you need to say. We treat it like it's I don't know, what do they have, like the cold plunge or a pool that's filled with cold water. If you tiptoe into it, it's much worse. When you don't say what you need to say right out of the gate, and instead you slowly walk into it with these little disclaimers, what I call them. This sounds like, hey, I just feel like I need to say this, I guess. And maybe I'm talking out of pocket here, but you ever heard that? You ever said that before? Where you say, yeah, I mean, listen, I'm sorry, but maybe, I'm just feeling more like you are trying to hesitate saying what you need to say, like you want to smooth it over. You want to hedge to make sure nobody feels like you're being too direct with it. But when it comes to asserting yourself, when it comes to stating your needs, nobody's going to do it for you. Remember, you're the one that has to be bold and out in the open with it. So think of it as that cold swimming pool. If you walk right into it, it's going to not feel great. It's not going to look smooth. It's not going to feel smooth. You either have two choices. You don't say it at all, or you jump right in. When you see people doing that cold plunge, they don't walk right into it. They don't slowly go into it. They put their whole body into it. So I want you to get used to that idea of, I'm going to put my whole body into this thing. If I have something to say, I'm going to say it. I'm not going to feel like I have to apologize for it. I'm not going to feel like I have to be hesitant and hedge the whole time. If it is something that is on your heart, and it is something that is truly asserting your needs in your life, you have one chance, one life, and this is it right here for you to be able to state your piece, assert your needs, and say what you need to say. Now, another part of this is often when it comes to standing up for yourself, it happens in moments where you need to say no to something. You need to turn something down. Maybe somebody's invited you to something, you got offered something, and you need to say no, but you don't know how to say it, and you're just not sure you can advocate that you need to say no. Now, we're going to talk later in this podcast about how to say no to certain things, how to decline something and still be respectful, how to disagree and still be respectful about it in those little bitty specific scenarios. Here, this is the point I'm making, of that there are times when you have to say something and they need to hear you say no. And there's a difference between saying no because after the end of it, using that word because to justify it, and just saying no. For example, let's say you asked me a question and I just said no. Versus no, because, I have that thing that we talked about, and, I got to make sure that I take care of this, and it's just been really busy lately, and I've just been so stressed, and so, I have that other thing, you see how it's much weaker? All of a sudden, I've added 3 more sentences after the no, and I've slowly watered down the place that I need to assert my needs. If I need to say no to something, I need to say no. So eliminate that habit of always saying no because. It's just no. And if they need to ask other questions, they're free to ask other questions, and you're free to say no again. I want you to feel empowered, all right, on this idea of just because they asked me something does not mean I have to give them something. Just because they told me something does not mean I have to have an answer for something. Standing up for yourself means that you are in complete peace with who you are and your presence in the conversation. And you know your worth wherever you are in that conversation, or if there should be a conversation at all. So when you need to say no to something, step into that. Don't go with these little verbal disclaimers. You say no to it. You don't say because and add on a verbal, it's like the opposite of a verbal disclaimer. You add in everything afterwards. No, because I'm just feeling X, Y, and Z. You don't need that. The word is no, period. What lots of people like to say and what I support is no is a complete sentence. These are what I call dismissive comments, in that they are dismissing your feelings, trying to dismiss any consequence of what they said. And in many ways, I want you to see these comments as them trying to control the eventual outcome. Imagine me just punching you in the arm, and you go, ow, I go, that didn't hurt. You ever had that happen? Maybe as a kid growing up, or you have a sibling. I know I'm the oldest of 4, and that definitely happened when you're roughhousing, you're wrestling, you do something, and go, that didn't hurt. And they go, what do you mean that didn't hurt? So I want you to imagine that in your mind, that somebody's hit you in the arm, and then they tell you that didn't hurt. As if they get to decide that, yeah, I hit you in the arm, but it didn't hurt. So no harm, no foul, right? You are the one that gets to decide that. And we're going to talk about these techniques on each one of these. And I want you to emphasize the idea that they don't get to say the outcome. They don't get to say the consequence. You do. They don't get to say what hurts. You do, right? You with me? All right, let's go. So first up is, I was just joking. It's just a joke. I hear that all the time. I know that you do too. When you get that dismissive comment back to you on something, I was just joking. Here's what I want you to do. Play off of this. If they want to make it a joke, then it better be funny. So what I like to say is, if somebody tells you, I was just joking, you respond, then make it funnier. Easy as that. That's number one. Number two, you could easily say, then work on your material or find new material. How about that? Then find new material. In other words, don't be making a joke about me. Don't be making a joke about something else. If they try to say something that is hurtful to you, let's say they made a comment about your looks. or your weight or your age or whatever it is. And then you kind of take offense to that and they go, hey, it was just a joke, okay? As if all of a sudden they've taken away any stinger that they have. When they made that kind of stuff, you say, well, then find new material. Or was that supposed to be of the funny kind? Was that supposed to be funny? Hey, it was just a joke. Then be funnier. Then find new content. Then find new material. Any way that you can play off the word of a joke, it's going to work to your advantage. My favorite is then be funnier, because it is a reminder right there in that moment of, if you wanted this to be a joke, that's not what it is. You can't just tailor a dismissive comment that's meant to be hurtful to me and just call it a joke and make sure everything is, then we're all good. And we're all good. No harm, no foul, like I talked about. When that kind of stuff happens, easily twist it back on them as, was that supposed to be funny? Or was that the funny kind of joke? Whenever you can ask those kind of things and put them on their heels to say, that's not going to pass with me. Number 2, one of my least favorite is don't take it personally. Hey, don't take it personally. Like, come on, then don't say it personally. What do you mean don't take it personally? You just said it to my face. How can it not be any more personal? It is, to me, one of just a total withdrawal of all accountability, of any ability to say, look, that was on me. You know what? I shouldn't have said that, instead of this, don't take it personally. I can't stand that comment. Here is some things that I like to use, and I know you can use them too. I get to decide that. I love that one because it is very immediate and clear where the boundaries are. Somebody says something to you and then they go, oh, don't take it personally. You respond, I get to decide that. It's the whole thing of hitting you in the arm kind of concept of, look, I get to decide to take it personally or not. Don't tell me how to take something. If you're going to send the paper airplane, I have a choice of how I'm going to catch it or if I let it fall. If you're going to throw the ball at me, I get to choose whether I want to catch it or I don't. That's all within my choice. So having that idea of I get to decide that puts you in the control seat every single time. Another that I like to use with don't take it personally is don't say it personally. Don't say it personally. Or then say it differently. That one is a comeback that you can use with all kinds of different dismissive comments. But I like that specifically with don't take it personally because of, it sounds like alliteration in a way. We say personally differently. They both have the adverb ly in them. And I feel that they're great at, it's a great little comeback to say, look, if you don't want me to take it personally, then say it differently. Say it again, say it a different way. It's a very strong, straight up front to say, look, if you don't want me to take something personally, then try again. Take it, say it differently. Okay, number 3 is don't be so sensitive. You heard that one? I know I have. Don't be so sensitive. And to be honest, I've definitely been one that said that too. And that wasn't fair. Say, don't be so sensitive. It is this idea that you go, look, can you just let things go for a bit? I just said something, all right? Do you have to turn everything into a fight? Do you have to do this? There is a toxic element of that type of dialogue because yes, you want to control the reaction. That's understandable, but that is just part of the battle. That means you're not doing the work up front to think about the consequence of what you're saying or to think about how your words sound. You just expect them to go how you want them to go. You want everybody to react how you expect them to react in your head, and that's not fair. So when you say the phrase, don't be so sensitive, understand everybody is sensitive. Everybody is sensitive. It just depends on the topic. It depends on the context. It depends on the environment. So it's subjective to everybody. So let that be what it's going to be. But when they say, don't be so sensitive, one thing that you can do that I love to do is play off the word sense. S-E-N-S-E. Say sense. So they say, don't be so sensitive. No, I'm sensing X, Y, and Z. So if somebody were to say, hey, look, it's just a joke. Don't be so sensitive. You can reply, no, I'm just sensing you're not that funny. You see what I mean? If somebody were to say an inappropriate comment and they go, look, Look, I just said it. Don't be so sensitive. You can reply, no, I'm just sensing that you and I have a different idea of what's appropriate to say out loud. You feel the difference? Here, you're not getting upset. You're not getting defensive. You are playing off of their words. Oh, don't be sensitive. No, I'm sensing. I'm sensing X, Y, and Z. And that's going to put you in a much better position to stay steady rather than a weaker position. And the key to each one of these replies that I'm suggesting for you to try is that you cannot let yourself become defensive. I know that's easier said than done, but I want you to play it out. If you were to automatically, somebody says, don't be so sensitive. And you're like, I'm sensitive? I'm not sensitive. What are you talking about? That's getting defensive. And all of a sudden you sound weaker and they sound stronger. Let me put it differently. They sound right and you sound wrong. You hear it? If you were to say, I'm not sensitive, what are you talking about? Me? I'm not sensitive. They sound stronger, you sound weaker. Instead, when you can stay exactly where you are and say, no, I'm just sensing that you and I have a different idea of what's okay to say to each other. Oof. I mean, that is a verbal punch. I mean, that is such a stronger position to keep in that instance. So any time that somebody says, don't take it personally, and you scoff at that, you get upset at that, you look weaker. If they were to say, don't be so sensitive, if they were to say anything else that is a dismissive comment, like it was just a joke, and you joke that, and you start to get you swell up about it and get defensive and start putting up your walls, the more it looks like you are exactly what they say you are. The more it looks like you're more sensitive. The more it looks like you're taking it literally, that you are everything that they say. So you have to make sure that you keep your breath calm, right? And I want you to stay exactly where you are. Try your best to not get defensive. It will really, really make a difference. If there's one thing about defensiveness, it's that it's so easy to do. It's just biological. It's natural, because anything that you perceive as a threat or a challenge, you fight against. It is natural as part of your fight or flight. On any argument that you're going to have, there are two sides. There is an ignition side and a cooling side of it. And that ignition is triggered by things